Hi, it's me. Welcome back to another Season 6 ID overview for Limbus Company. Canto 8 Part 2 has brought with it only a single new ID in Heishou Pack Mao Branch Adept Faust. She's technically a combination of a Rupture and a Poise ID, though the Poise is kind of an afterthought, but she is insanely powerful as a Rupture ID. This is pretty clearly intended to be the leader ID for the Heishou IDs, even if she doesn't do the thing that other leader IDs do by buffing her entire team. Still, she is an insanely powerful ID, though since she's on a banner by herself, I would definitely say to just shard her when you get the chance, since pulling is questionable in that case. Don't be like me and use 90 pulls to get her, losing 5 consecutive 50-50 chances when pulling 3 stars on her banner. And with that intro out of the way, let's get right into this ID's kit. To start off, this ID has 4 new status effects, and due to how they work, I'm going to opt to explain them when they become relevant rather than all at once at the start like I usually do. That being said, I need to talk about Tianjiu Star's Blade now because it's specifically tied to her passive. It has a maximum stack of 20 and gives 1 haste per turn when its value is over 10. The mechanism for gaining this effect is found in her passive. There's a 10% damage conditional here, but the important part is how she gains the new status. Whenever death rate of any kind is triggered by anyone, she gains 1 Tianjiu Star's Blade, gaining an additional 1 if she was the one who triggers it. More importantly, and the more likely source of this status, she gains 5 upon triggering Assist Defense, a status with a terrifying name given what Assist Attack does, but we're going to talk about it a bit later. Just keep it in the back of your mind for now. And just to quickly mention her support passive, gaining offense level up next turn when inflicting Rupture is really nice. Although not only will you want to use her in the team to begin with, but compared to what else you gain from 4 Gluttony or Resonance, this is somehow a very underwhelming effect for what it costs. Blink Step is a skill that should look familiar. It's a 3-11 rolling/sloth skill with 2 coins that can become a 3-15 based on how fast she is compared to the target and the target's Rupture. In fact, it should look very familiar, because this skill is exactly the same as Heishou Ryoshu's skill 1 minus the Sin Affinity. A reusable coin that isn't tied to a Rupture conditional is still very powerful, and the fact that this skill becomes Rupture count neutral on a Clash win is incredibly valuable for a Rupture team. Plus, being able to generate more Sloth is always welcome in a team that struggles to otherwise get more than 1 ID to have that affinity. Clearing the Path, my lord, is a 4-16 rolling/pride skill with 2 coins that can become a 4-20 under the same conditionals as skill 1. It is also Rupture count neutral on a Clash win, much like Ryoshu's skill 2 once again, however it has things that differentiate it this time. Firstly, the damage conditional is based on her own Tianjiu Star's Blade instead of the target's Rupture this time. The haste gain is always nice since Strider Mao just barely doesn't make her speed be guaranteed over 10, and the 50% damage bonus on coin 2 if the target has Death Right's haste or fissure, which is not relevant yet, is great for damage on her otherwise worst damaging skill. It's hard to find something interesting to say about it since it is still almost the same as the other Heishou Mao ID skill 2s, but it is a pretty useful skill overall. And now we get to the part of the kit where Assist Defense becomes relevant. Before we get into the next skills, I have to explain how this effect works. Assist Defense is an effect applied to self that stacks up to 3. It goes away at turn end. When an ally who isn't the unit with this effect is about to take a one-sided attack, what will instead happen is that this ID will clash with that attack using a specific skill that is tied to Assist Defense. Notably, it cannot activate for allies who will activate defense skills in response to that unopposed attack, so keep that in mind. And if somehow multiple allies have this effect, the one with the highest stack is the one whose Assist Defense is used. It is a very powerful effect that can help to generate additional Sin resources and allow other Rupture IDs to use their attacks one-sided to more often help with the main game plan of Rupture. The specific skill that Heishou Faust activates with Assist Defense is Swift Feet Protection, a 4-14 rolling Gluttony Clashable Guard with a single unbreakable coin. It has no power conditionals, but the defense level increases by up to 6 based on how much damage she has cumulatively taken this encounter. Not only does it give her 2 protection, which pairs really well with her incredibly solid bulk for an ID that has this much speed and damage, but straight up prevents her from being staggered when she gets hit after losing a clash with the skill, which is just crazy. Remember that she gains 5 Tianjiu Star's Blade whenever Assist Defense triggers as well, and it has one other effect that we'll go over in a minute. There are two ways for this ID to gain assist defense. The first is by slotting in her defense skill on combat start. It shall be done, a 5-13 rolling/gluttony clashable counter with 2 coins that can become a 7-15 if Faust is fast enough compared to her target. It can also gain up to 6 offense level based on how much damage she has cumulatively taken, and since Rupture teams really like Gluttony Resonance, this skill is likely to roll quite high on average. Though notably, this is the only skill in her entire kit that isn't at least Rupture count neutral upon winning a clash, so keep that in mind when using it in a Rupture team. It is important to use this skill, however, since it is a free source of Strider Mao, and just like the other Mao units, you really want to maintain this status as much as possible. The other way to gain assist defense is by slotting in her skill 3 at combat start. Traceless to Sight and Sound alike is a 5-17 rolling/gluttony skill with 3 coins that can become up to a 5-26 based on her speed compared to the target and the target's Rupture. It is, once again, almost identical to Ryoshu's skill 3, even down to her damage conditional being based on enemy Rupture, though there is a reason for that. It becomes Rupture count positive on Clash Win thanks to it inflicting Deathrite Haste on the first coin, deals bonus damage and rerolls the last coin once on being at 10 plus speed, which is crazy strong just like before, plus the reroll also inflicts Deathrite Haste. It also grants her Strider Mao just like the other IDs do. And lastly, we get to the 6th and final skill in her kit, which is used when she either uses her skill 3 or her assist defense skill while at 10 plus Tianjiu Star's Blade. Ascendant Heishou Mao Technique Cloud Splitting Manifestation is a 5-17 rolling/gluttony skill with 3 coins that can become up to a 5-29 based on her speed difference compared to the target and the target's Rupture. It is very similar to her original skill 3, aside from gaining an additional coin power from enemy Rupture. There's only 2 big differences here. The first is that it always gives 20 poise when at 10 plus speed and forces her poise count up to 4 if it is lower than 4. This is the only source of poise in her kit. The other difference is inflicting Deathrite Fissure in addition to Deathrite Haste. What's cool about this skill is that it doesn't spend Tianjiu Star's Blade until after use, so if you set her skill 3 and she doesn't get to use it, you can still have the opportunity to use this again next turn. Deathrite 3 the Fissuring is a new form of Deathrite that is inflicted at 3 stacks, and its effect is to inflict 1 bind when you trigger Rupture damage against that enemy. If the enemy were already to have 3 or more bind next turn, it will instead of inflicting bind, reduce by an additional stack. No, it does not give 2 more Tianjiu Star's Blade from the passive. This is just an easy Deathrite to trigger the Gluttony damage burst with, and more Gluttony damage is never a bad thing. It also inflicts Mark of Decay upon dropping to 0. Mark of Decay lasts until the end of the turn, and functions as 1 Gluttony Fragility, while also increasing the damage taken by Deathrite's Gluttony Burst by 10%. It's not insanely broken, but extra damage is extra damage, so there's really nothing wrong with it. When it comes to good ego choices, there's really only 2 that come to mind. First off, she perfectly fuels her own representation emitter for a nice SP boost for your team, not that she has any other Zayn to run in that slot to begin with. Still, when she gets a second one, keep it in mind for this ID in particular. While all of her skills are Rupture count neutral at the very least if you win a clash, you can also use Lasso once per each fight in order to occasionally inflict a little extra Rupture count using its passive. The skill itself is decent for damage and AoE count infliction, but you'll probably want to use her own skills compared to this ego if you're not activating the passive. Team building for this ID is very simple if you think about it. You want to have a team that can trigger Deathrite as often as possible, and beyond that, a team that focuses on Rupture. You're actually more likely to trigger Deathrite Haste than any other, so the best 2 partners for the Heishou Mao Adept are the other 2 Heishou Mao IDs. This also means you want a Rupture team that focuses very heavily on Rupture IDs who can go very fast. The best speedy Rupture IDs are both of the Devyats as well as Sankt Marceau, who have the potential to hit 10 speed on their own in order to activate Deathrite Haste. That said, any Rupture ID has the potential to hit 10 speed if you used Crow's Eye View during the previous turn. That means that using a good Rupture Yi Sang ID is particularly nice to pair with this Faust, and the best for that purpose is W Corp Yi Sang, who is just a really strong Rupture ID to begin with, especially if you have his Dimension Shredder Ego as well. LCE Ego Yi Sang can also work for this purpose if you have him, though his availability is actually way lower despite being a much worse ID than W Corp. If you want to have more passive gain for Tianjiu Star's Blade, then the best way to do so is to add the Heishou C branch IDs of Rodian and Gregor to add Deathrite Venom into the mix. While your team is primarily Rupture, you have very solid poise support in the form of both Thoracalgios, so maintaining poise on the new Faust specifically is not out of the question. Your access to a lot of Pride Ego will also make Ryoshu's Thoracalgia's poise gain a lot more consistent, but if you feel you don't need as much Deathrite, I would say prioritize Gregor over Rodian, since she has Deviant, who is easier to get on average and better for Rupture, Infliction, and Speed. Lantern Dawn is also an excellent choice, and while she is too slow to activate Deathrite Haste, she does great at inflicting Rupture, and now has access to her Red Sheet Ego, which is just crazy for Rupture thanks to its new effect that just inflicts a bunch of extra Rupture count and attack power down next turn. One other thing to note about this new Faust is that it has more HP than any other Rupture ID, minus the two that don't really see much play in Rupture but still have a ton of HP in Priest Gregor and Keikor Ponglu. This means that Red Sheet Sinclair's support passive will regularly apply to her, which is actually pretty good due to her high amount of coins on skills 1 and 3. This has always been a thing that Rupture teams gain a lot of benefit from, and considering how fast she is, your other teammates will benefit from all that bonus Rupture. So yes, I do think using Red Sheet Sinclair on the bench is probably better than bringing Deviant Sinclair in an active slot, though both have their upsides in this case. And finally, any other Rupture ID with even remotely good infliction is a good partner with this ID. 7 Heathcliff, 7 Otis, and Rose Spanner Gregor for use of his AEDD Ego are the 3 big contenders, but stuff like LCCB Ishmael is also a reasonable choice for a good ally here. And that's about all I have to say about this new ID. The fact that this video is longer than the last one when I'm talking about half the amount of IDs should speak to how good this ID actually is. One thing I didn't mention is that she's genuinely a fantastic generalist ID as well. She just loses a few of her Rupture conditionals. If you want to borrow her, I have her in my company, as well as a Molar Ishmael using the new 100-footed Death Maggot Ego, since that's the one that's on the Babe Battle Pass that became available this week. Be sure to like and subscribe as it helps me out a bunch, and let me know what you think of this new ID in the comments. Thank you for watching my video, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you again soon.